Hey guys, welcome to video number 8. I'm going to try to keep this one short and sweet. It's basically just a follow-up video to my last video, which was about using stems in a live performance. Right now what you're hearing is a filter, low-pass filter on a set of stems that I have running. This is my beat stem, this is my instrumental stem, and this is my backing vocal stem. My vocals come out of these two tracks, a through track with a reverb and a neighbor track with a send for delay. The send is activated by using a scene 16. My vocals right now are not coming out of the Octatrack, so they won't be affected by it. But let's start with scenes. So I've adjusted my scenes only a little bit. Basically, I put all of them on the right so that I don't have to use two hands while I'm performing. I can be holding a microphone or playing a keyboard at the same time. And my scenes are basically used for little performance effects to emphasize different moments in the stems that are running. So maybe if I want to be singing louder and de-emphasize the beat, I can use my low-pass filter. I can also quickly assign a high-pass filter. Right. So an additional thing that I've added is I have a bass station. It's off camera this way. And I want to be able to sequence MIDI through it. But I also want to be able to choose a program. So within MIDI, the MIDI menu is here. I've activated one of the 8 MIDI tracks that you can have active. And the channel is 11, so I have it set to 11. It's sending information to my bass station. And it's also selecting program number 5. So you may be wondering, how do I switch programs from one song to another? Well, last week, I had all of my patterns in a single bank, and it was like 1 through 12 here. But since then, I've actually switched over to using an individual bank for every song. And I had a conversation with a fellow YouTuber last week on the comment section of my video last week. Shout out to Avon. And we basically talked about using banks as opposed to patterns because basically in my last project, I had each pattern was using a single trig in the first position like this, except I had to go in and choose, for each pattern, I had to choose the specific stem that I wanted to perform. And this made things a little confusing because the audio file that was displayed here was no longer relevant to which pattern I was on. It would just stay the same, and then each pattern would play a specific file, which I would have to go into this menu to see. But this way, with banks, I can actually have a unique set of parts and patterns for every bank. A bank basically holds a set of 16 parts, 16 patterns and 4 parts. And what this allows me to do is have extremely customized routings, customized effects parameters and values. And it allows me also to rename my part specifically to the song that I'm on. I could do this in the past, but I would only have 4 options if I was using a single bank. Having a bank for every song means I can just use part 1 for each bank, and I can name it something that reminds me of what song I'm on. So it kind of doubles as a set list. So bank 1, part 1, pattern 1 is called Magic. You rename it by pressing function part, and you have your options here. Select rename. And bank 2, part 1, or pattern 1. So my bank 2 is assigned to a song called Electric Feel, which is everybody's familiar with. It's a cover. And so I called it MGMT to remind me where I am. And so this is how I go through my set. I'll play this. Right, so in my second song, I don't have as much reverb, and I also have a tiny bit of time delay. So I can have sort of a slapback vocal. And I can do this because I have a unique part for every bank. So my workflow typically for designing something like this, I start with bank 1, pattern 1, part 1. I figure out a set of parameters I like. I save it as a new part. And then when I want to go to my next song, I copy over my pattern, I copy over my part, and I adjust accordingly. This allows everything to be consistent except the things that I change. And obviously, there are certain tweaks that you have to make to every part, which gets a little bit frustrating. So for example, if I thought that the gain on my vocal needs to be higher on all parts, I have to go into each bank, each pattern, copy over the part, or copy over the parameters exactly. Maybe copy the track by pressing function, copy, going to the next bank, pasting the track on. This can be a bit tedious, but I think given the benefits of using a unique part, you can adjust routing, you can adjust, for example, I have a pickup machine here. So I have it set to track 6, which is my neighbor track. So I can loop my vocal if I want to create some sort of thing on the fly. But then that routing is saved to that part only. So if I go to bank 4, pattern 1, I can change that source to 7. And I can record my OP1 instead. So if I know that on a particular song I'm not going to want to loop my vocal and I'd rather loop my OP1, I can pre-program all of that in so that I don't have to go in and switch anything. It'll just work. So yeah, all of that is pretty much what it comes down to in terms of the changes I've made to my project. Just to recap, I have a unique set of scenes. Oh yeah, that's a good reminder. Every bank, every part actually has its own set of scenes. So when you copy over a part, you copy over those scenes. But what this allows me to do is have, for example, scene 16 can be different for every single song. So instead of having to remember to change things up, I can just have this knob, or I can just have this crossfader do something different for every single song so that I can focus on performing, and that I just know that whenever I do this, something cool happens. And I can specify that for each song. So just to recap, I got specific scenes for each track. I have everything on the right so that I can do it all with one hand. I can control MIDI within my program changes. Within my MIDI menu, I can change programs per song. I can change programs per song because I have a new bank for every single song. By the way, if you're using something like this, I recommend going into your project menu and saving your current bank often, as well as saving all your parts often, because this allows you to hit reload part or reload bank, and it resets the bank that you're on, so that if you're doing something cool with sequencing or something like that, you can just hit that and it'll reload it. You cannot do this while performing though, because it starts up a sort of a load bar, so it will interrupt your playback. Aside from that, yeah, I think it's important to remember that I came up with this video because of a comment on the last video. So if you have any suggestions or questions or things like that, feel free to comment below. And I'm learning just as much as you guys are, so I'm definitely welcome to any new insights. So thanks again, Avon, for having that conversation and helping me improve my own workflow. All right, guys, thanks for watching. See you next week.